All right, I think we have enough people here to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to call this meeting of the Bloomington Commission on Sustainability to order. We're going to start off with a roll call. So commissioners, when I say your name, just please unmute and give some sort of indication that you are present. So first off, Jarrett, he's here. Christy said she's not going to be here. Matt.
Here.
Awesome. Alicia.
Here.
Cool. Nolan.
Here.
Great. Jonna. Alrighty, I don't see her. Colin.
Here.
Awesome. Shelby.
Here.
Awesome. Najla.
Here.
Cool. And Joseph.
Here.
Good deal. Okay, so then we will move into the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda for this meeting. So Lauren emailed that out, and if you're a member of the public, you can find that on the BCOS website. So does anybody have any changes they would like to make to the agenda before we vote on its approval? Alrighty, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote for this. So when I say your name, just unmute and say how you want to vote on approving the agenda. So Jarrett votes yes. Matt?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Nolan?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Shelby?
Yes.
Najla?
Yes.
And Joseph.
Yes.
Alrighty, the agenda is adopted. Now we will move into public comment. So if you're a member of the public who would wish to give comment, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom and I'll recognize you and we'll give you your 3 minutes for the comment. Yeah, Don.
Okay, very quickly, since your last meeting, one more of our environmental commission members has resigned because she's now joining the Lotus board and doesn't have the time. Plus that's on top of our chairperson who went to the plan commission and therefore had to leave the environmental commission. So there are openings in the EC. We're moving ahead with the wildlife habitat corridor project. Met last or Sunday evening, and so that's moving ahead. Real quickly though, one other thought is as far as the city's climate action plan. Last Monday, I took the online winter weather spotter course from the National Weather Service, Indianapolis. And what really was, I thought, something to share with your commission is the fact that the instructor and meteorologist pointed out that with climate change, the traditional things that because now they're modifying the spotter program to include winter weather. He reminded the participants in the class last week that with climate change, that the probability of having storms like which devastated the Midwest last Friday, so Friday or Saturday, but anyhow, would be possible. And that we should not forget about our responsibilities for reporting those types of weather events. So it's, again, pointing out to the importance of the city's environmental plan and taking action.
Awesome. Thank you for that comment. Are you all finished? Okay. Do we have any other members of the public who are wishing to give comment? Seeing none, we will then move into the next item on the agenda, which is the report from Chair. So I have a few quick things. First off, we have 3 vacancies on the commission. I know I brought this up last time, but if you have someone you know who you think would be a good addition, encourage them to apply. I don't know where the mayor's office is on those appointments. I think all 3 of the vacancies are mayoral vacancies, plus we have the vacancy from the IU Office of Sustainability. So just making sure that we're getting new people joining the commission to fill those spots. On that note, I also did want to share that next semester I will be studying abroad in Sweden. And so I will not be accepting another term on BCOS. So it's a little bittersweet, but I have been planning to study abroad for a while and I'm looking forward to it. And so I will be stepping down as chair and then also leaving the commission after the January meeting. So I just wanted to make you all aware so that the transition is as smooth as possible and we can get everything situated beforehand. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, oh yeah, I'm going to Linköping, Sweden. It's the 5th largest city, I think, and the 5th largest university. Oh yeah, Joseph.
All right, you can continue. I will ask my question when you've completed your report.
Oh, okay. That's basically all I had to say, but I just wanted to let everyone know I've really enjoyed my time on the commission. I think over 2 years. I think I joined in September of 2019. So a little while, but yeah, I just wanted to let you know, and that's all I have for the report from Chair. So Joseph.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm excited for your study abroad semester.
Thank you.
I did want to just make a quick point of order. I don't believe we have a secretary present at this meeting and just wanted to see if there was, if the vice chair will be filling the role of secretary or appointing one to do so.
I was taking notes. Sorry, I should have said that. We need to talk about officer elections, and I was going to mention that in the next report. If that works for now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can wait until I believe that's under Lauren's report. So yeah, that's all I have for report from Chair. So then we will move into the report from ESD. So Lauren, feel free to take it away.
Sure, I have just a couple of things and I'll keep this relatively brief because we have a vote later in the agenda. The first was someone reached out to the city from this group called Confront the Climate Crisis, and it's a grassroots movement asking if our commission would be interested in supporting their campaign. We don't need to take action on this at this meeting, but I wanted to encourage you all to check out the website and consider if at the January meeting we'd like to, as a commission, write a letter of support. And for more details, the link is in the agenda, but it's confronttheclimatecrisis.com/our campaign. And generally speaking, it's a group that's looking to advocate that the state take more action on climate, in particular, certain activities like advocate for the state to have a broader climate action plan. Just wanted to point that out and offer that at the next meeting, I will follow up in old business and see if that's something that the group's interested in writing a letter in support of. As a second point, as Jarrett mentioned, there's quite a few of people whose either terms are expiring or they're cycling off the commission. And so just reiterating, if you know anyone that's interested in applying, we will have quite a few vacancies. I'm thinking 5. And so in order to smooth that transition more, just encourage anyone that's interested in joining to put in their application sooner rather than later, which gives both the mayor's office and the council more time to either schedule interviews or consider the applications. And then another thing that I wanted to discuss with the group is any amendment to the bylaws needs to go in front of 2 meetings. And so with that in mind, and the fact that we've had quite a few people have to leave the commission for a variety of reasons. Typically in the bylaws, our elections have been in July. with a couple of different vacancies. I wanted to see if people would consider amending that to change the officer elections to either February or March, which more closely aligns with when the term expirations time out. And that would allow, with Jared's departure, of official election to fill the open seats for chair and secretary. So yeah, I just wanted to hear if anyone had concerns about that or thoughts about having officer elections in February. Joseph?
Yeah, I'm in support of that and would be willing to have that discussion during this meeting, during the new business portion.
Okay.
Matt,
Yeah.
Matt, did you have something? Sorry.
I did. Sorry, my hand, I'm in the blur. It's hard to see. Were you hoping to make that amendment this meeting, Lauren, so that we could vote on it in the next? Is that?
Yeah,
that needed?
so discuss
Sorry.
at this meeting and then vote at the next one.
Okay. I know when we've had in the past, we voted on resolutions, it had to be heard twice. Is this, we don't have to have that language in this meeting. We can just have it be discussed and then.
I think so. I mean, in reading the bylaws, I just said that any amendment needs to come up for 2 meetings. So I think if people had wanted to have further discussion in addition to those 2 meetings, I would be open to moving it to March, but for the sake of continuity, it seemed better to start that discussion now.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Angela?
Hi, yeah, so I, as vice chair, I also support this idea of moving the election date earlier in the year, especially to coincide with your departure. I just wanted to add, I'm also able to step in and help chair temporarily if needed as vice chair.
I appreciate that. Jared had shared that he might be literally on an airplane in January, so we could need your help. Matt?
I had another bylaws related issue that I wanted to bring up. It might make the most sense to do so now just because we're talking about it, or would we rather save that discussion for later?
You can just mention what your concern is and then we can see if it requires more discussion.
Sure. If any of you recall, there was some discussion in the past over what constitutes a quorum, and in particular, the ambiguity around the language of our bylaws would say, unless otherwise specified, a majority of members serving constitute a quorum. And the question is, what does serving mean? And do we count the number of filled seats or the number of possible seats? Right now, for instance, we maybe only have 10 members serving. Vacant seats aren't members serving. So majority of members serving would be, I suppose, 6. But by convention in the city, and this language is common to most of the commissions in the city, by convention, we've treated it as a majority of possible seats. I think that's done out of an abundance of caution in the context of especially commissions with statutory authority of some kind, and a legal role to play in that context. And our council attorneys have talked with city attorneys about this. They agree it's ambiguous, but there's no, I mean, we could change city code. Another option is for commissions have the ability, of course, to define quorum how they wish. And seeing as BCOS and some other, advisory commissions from time to time have challenges with attendance and that sort of thing, we could redefine quorum to be a different thing if you all wanted to. So I did want to raise that issue and see what folks thought. Sorry, if this is better in new business, a separate conversation, we can do that. I grant that it's obviously a different question than when elections come.
Joseph?
Yeah, that's actually just what I was going to suggest, because there's also the matter of the sustainability report, which is part of the bylaws annual meeting content as well, that I was intending to discuss later.
Okay, we'll keep it moving. If we can move to the report from council, and then we can discuss that when we get down to new business.
Yeah, sure, thanks. So nothing really to report from the council end. I suppose a very minor update that the Climate Action and Resilience Committee met yesterday with Lauren to schedule quarterly meetings for the 2022 calendar year to just keep more regular contact and updates and work collaboration on that front. Our legislative cycle for the year is wrapping up. We have our last meeting of the year tomorrow night, a fairly light load there. And we'll be on recess over the holidays, reconvening on January 5th, which is sort of known as Organization Day, where we will vote on leadership for the year for the council, as well as appointments to all boards, commissions, committees. So that's when we decide those. It's certainly possible that a different council member will serve on BCOS next year, though I'm interested in continuing to serve. But we're fairly collegial about those things and just sort of share and pass it around sometimes. So we'll see if I don't end up serving next year. It's been a pleasure this year, but I think that's really it from the council end. I will mention briefly, I know I mentioned in the last meeting, so I guess one more thing. I know I mentioned in the last meeting the idea of a climate-oriented resolution at the council level that I'm still sort of waiting on to follow up with some more folks, and in particular, you know, wanting it to be useful and not redundant with what we passed in the when we approved the climate action plan. And part of that grew out of specifically Confront the Climate Crisis, which is the group that Lauren brought up, approaching me and Councilmember Rallo earlier in the year. There had also been discussions in 2019 when, you know, this was a sort of movement globally, climate emergency resolutions. So this youth-driven Indiana climate movement was pursuing this with a number of municipalities around the state this year. And I'm happy to oblige them on acknowledging the climate crisis via resolution. But I think the question I was asking a little bit is what else would be useful to include? And in particular, a couple of things that have crossed my mind are, I guess, firming up the council's commitment to the new 2050 net zero goal that is in our climate action plan, and possibly voicing support for other initiatives that are happening. So one is the Confront the Climate Crisis state legislative initiatives that I think they're working on with a Republican senator from the Lafayette area. So there's two legislative items they plan to introduce in the new session, the Indiana General Assembly in January. And another was the work that the Sunrise Movement has been doing here in Bloomington around divestment with and reinvestment with the university. So I just kind of want to give a status update on that. I haven't done much on it in the last month, just out of busyness / waiting to hear a little bit more from the Confront the Climate Crisis folks and talk more to the Sunrise folks about where they are in their campaigns and potentially supporting them. So I know, Najla, you had expressed some interest in connecting on that and we hadn't been able to do so yet, so apologize for that. But I just wanted to update and also share that connection with what I believe the campaign, Lauren, that you mentioned, that's in reference to the state legislation that will be coming in January. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. So there's a couple of options on their site, whether to voice your support as an individual, which anyone is welcome to do outside of this meeting, or have a more institutional response, which I'm sure they would be happy to have our commission sign on in support of that.
Got it. Thank you. So yeah, they're great. They were at I've spoken to those folks a few times now, and they were at Greening the State House last month or earlier this month. I gave a good presentation there, and they've been making some good headway in communities around the state. So I think that's it on the council end. Nothing major. Any questions from folks?
What was the name of the group? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Confront the climate crisis.
Okay, that's the group organizing stuff at the state level.
Yeah, and local level. They're doing some of both. And the link that I'll see if I can just drop it in the chat. There's a link that Lauren mentioned about the campaign. So confronttheclimatecrisis.com/our-campaign. Oh, sorry. Nigel already got it. Oh, that's our team. Yeah. Anyway, that's the group. Okay. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Matt. We will now move into the next item on the agenda for today, which is old business. The only scheduled item that we have under old business is a follow-up to our presentation from HAM Director John Zodi from last meeting. So if anybody has anything that they want to say based on that presentation, or questions they want to ask, or comments, questions, concerns, whatever, you can raise your hand and we can talk about it or whatever. Yeah, Najla.
Hi. Yeah, I really appreciated Mr. Zodi's visit. I found it extremely helpful for our commission to be able to yeah, just engage with you know, someone who's doing such an important role in our city related to our commission's work. So I thought it was very valuable, very much appreciated it. And I hope that we can continue to engage both, you know, the community and yeah, and city and the rest of the city administration like this, that we could continue to do this. Specifically, I thought that the answers that he had to some of my questions told me that it really informed my approach to working on the Housing First Resolution version 2. And it's made me think that, you know, and I kind of was thinking before though, that our town could really benefit from some kind of public event, like a town hall type of thing around the issue of ending homelessness, pulling together all the stakeholders. We've talked about this so many times now in the working groups, especially, and, you know, bringing in some of the experts who could kind of really make the case that homelessness is solvable, that it actually is the city's responsibility, and, you know, and can be solved, and bringing in the people who would need to, and basically bringing in the people to start that city, you know, that private public partnership that would be needed to resolve the crisis. So, you know, it'd be great to get something out of this, like the Indianapolis Continuum of Care dashboard. They have a pretty nice homelessness response team where they can tell you at any moment, they have data that they could tell you at any moment, like how many people are homeless in their city, their demographics, you know, and what their needs are, you know, and how soon and I think it would be great. I think, you know, from everything that we have looked at and people we've talked to, like that's what it's going to take to end homelessness. And I feel like in our version 2 of this resolution, we could really focus on that approach, and specifically in like planning some kind of town hall event, possibly. But we're actually working on this within the Just Transition Working Group. So I guess I won't say any more now on that. I'll wait for someone else to give the update on that group. But if anyone else on Because has any comments or thoughts on that, I would love to hear them, and any thoughts on the Housing First Resolution version 2. That I'm thinking at this point it would come out in late spring, because then we might have like a town hall type of event to gather community feedback and direction in February and March. And so the version 2 would come out a month or two later, kind of based on that event. Anyway, yeah, thanks. That's all I had to say on Mr. Zodi's visit.
Thank you, Najla. Shelby?
Yeah, I thought the presentation was great. I think kind of from the presentation, it sounded like he left a lot on the table about he could have gone in depth in some areas and he just kind of like grazed over it. So I don't know if that particular presentation was one specifically made for us and the similarities and like where we have similar goals, or if it was just one that he kind of recycles. But I think going forward, if he comes back, which I think would be fabulous, kind of similar to this, what are the tangible goals? What are we really getting out of this for our specific commission? If that's something that we can ask him of, hey, can we tailor this of what are the shared goals? Where do we align? Those kinds of things. I think that way we can get a little bit more into details where it felt like there was so much that we wanted to know and so many more details that we could have had if we really focused on one specific area or something like that.
Yeah, no, and I let him know our interests kind of generally, because the reason he was originally invited was relating to the Housing First resolution, and also because he's fairly new in that position. But I think your point is definitely important, and I think if he's invited back, we should go about maybe collecting commissioner questions to send to him beforehand to incorporate into the presentation. To make sure that it's catered exactly to what we're interested in. Yeah, Matt?
Yeah, thanks for your thoughts all and appreciate it, Mr. Zodi. Coming to share, I happened to meet with him not long after that and we chatted about this a little bit. And I think one term that would have been helpful to bring up was functional zero as a concept or term of art in the homelessness world of we're not going to, I think what he was trying to say when he was saying that we're never going to solve this issue permanently or we are going to solve it is not that we can't solve it for individuals, but that this problem in the structure of American society or capitalism isn't going to go away. But I think the communities that are doing best at this, achieve what they call functional zero, where we don't have chronically homeless individuals anymore, where folks may fall into homelessness briefly, but it's a rare event. It is something we can get people out of that they don't fall back into. And I think that's a useful frame. But I also think I just wanted to bring up that some level of this is being addressed or work being done by the Housing and Security Group and efforts that have grown out of that, now housed in the United Way. So Najla mentioned, for instance, a public-private partnership. The Housing and Security Working Group updated what our Continuum of Care Board had developed years ago in 2014 called the Heading Home Plan. So there's now a new version of the Heading Home Plan and a call for staffing to do some of exactly what Najla's calling for, developing a dashboard and data collection capabilities. This was one of the best practices that emerged from leading cities on this issue, so that the community can better understand the problem and so that all stakeholders can understand what the needs are at any given moment. How many beds are available, how many folks are experiencing homelessness, and other relevant metrics. So, regardless of I think individual opinions from anybody on the ideal organizational structure to try to tackle some of this, where it is now is the city, county, and nonprofit and private sector and individuals in the community are collaborating through the Heading Home Initiative as implemented by folks under the United Way, which are grant funded now through ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act funds from the city and county both, I think some other donors. So in particular, Mary Morgan, who used to be with the Chamber of Commerce, has recently started in that new role, coordinating that initiative. So I think I would just highly encourage folks to get plugged in directly with Mary and with United Way and the Heading Plan if you haven't read it already, because that's kind of the central organizing point for their mission, which is making homelessness brief, rare, and non-repeating. And I think, well, I absolutely would welcome John Zodi back to present on these issues. Having somebody like Mary or somebody involved with that effort in particular might be more fruitful in some ways if we're looking to have more of a robust Q&A around the work that's being done in this space, what can be done, what our barriers and limits are, funding politically, otherwise. So I just wanted to plug that.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions on Director Zodi's presentation? Already seeing none.
Sorry,
Oh,
can I
yeah.
jump in? Oh yeah, I just wanted to follow up and say to Council Member Council Member Flaherty, thank you for that information, and I definitely will follow up with you to maybe get an introduction from you or a reference on a contact for that group. I have read I think the plan you're referring to, and to me it didn't look like anyone was still taking responsibility for closing the gaps, some of the major gaps that we have around homelessness. So I would really be interested in further following up with you with those people.
Absolutely. I'll forward you. Mary just reached out to me today, as it happens, from that role. So I'll forward you her contact info in that capacity.
Alrighty, if nobody has anything else to say on this topic, before we move out of old business, I'll just ask if anybody has any other old business that they'd like to bring up. Okay, seeing none. Oh, Colin.
Thanks, Jared, and apologies, folks. I'm having AV issues, so I can't be on camera this evening. So I wanted to just make one quick point about leadership positions on the commission. I think that, for example, when we were voting on the resolution that I brought to the commission, I obviously was stumbling a little bit with Robert's Rules of Order because I'm not super experienced with a formal kind of governance and facilitation with using Robert's Rules. And so I'm wondering, is there a way we can build into the onboarding process for leadership, and maybe even for all commissioners, but certainly for leadership, sort of a brief training on Robert's Rules? Because it's one thing to sort of read about it in a document, which we do have access to in our shared folder, but it's another thing to sort of practice it. So curious what folks think.
I think that would be really helpful. I know my own knowledge, experience with the Robert's Rules of Order are limited. And I also think that, kind of building on your point, Colin, not only do we probably need to have some sort of training for people to use Robert's Rules, but also an understanding as a commission of like how we want to implement them. Because I know that certain bodies kind of utilize them more strictly than others. And I think that that should kind of be something that maybe happens at the same meeting as these elections, to kind of hear what people, whoever wants to serve as the next chair, to hear what they think about how they feel about Robert's Rules, and whether the commission likes that view or maybe wants to take a different route. I think that could be really important to moving forward, and making a space where everyone feels comfortable, I guess, going about the meeting. Joseph?
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to raise my hand a moment ago, but I lost the window, and just wanted to add that I really strongly agree with that idea, Colin, and I really like it. And I also think it's important. I had just read about it on personal time just to get a better understanding, but I think it'd be really good to make sure everyone's on the same page. And just like Jared added, agrees with how we want to use it as a commission. I think that's an equally as important component. I don't have any solutions in mind about how to go about that, but we'll definitely reflect between now and the next meeting as to how we can achieve that. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to say on this topic, or have another topic that they'd like to bring up in old business before we move into new business? Alrighty, seeing none, we will then move into new business. And the first item on the agenda in new business is the amendment to Resolution 2102, which is the Environmental Justice Solutions event in 2022. So I didn't know, Colin, if you want to introduce that, or Lauren, or.
Well, can I ask a quick question? Is it helpful to share it on the screen, or would people prefer to pull up the amendment on their own screen so we can see each other? I just didn't know what people's preference was.
I think sharing it would be prudent.
Okay. Okay, it should be viewable. No. Colin, do you want to introduce it, or I'm happy to walk through it?
Sure, I'm happy to, Lauren.
Okay.
So we had a productive meeting last week, that is the ad hoc RIA presentation working group. And, we had pretty strong consensus around the idea that we want to use all of the funding that is available in the Department of Economic and Sustainable Development for this particular event. And that's in the spirit of sort of trying to get the most out of it. So I believe our resolution, the one that we passed, I think we approved about 2 hours, correct, for the consultants. Is that right, Lauren? Initially?
Yes.
So this particular addendum that we're bringing forth today, which we agreed upon, will approve, I guess, up to $1,500, which is approximately 3 hours of the consultant's time. And that's in order for us to have 1 full hour of prep time, which the consultant stated that they needed up front, and then 2 hours total of sort of work time, or face-to-face time, if you will. So that 2 hours will be split up thusly. As you can see in the addendum, we're going to have a 90-minute community town hall, which that includes a 30-minute presentation that the consultant will make about the RIA and the tool, and then a 60-minute town hall listening session in an open forum, and that'll be open to community members and city and county officials. So the idea of that listening, that 60 minutes section, is to sort of inform the city's climate action plan implementation. And it'll give community members a direct way to, discuss community needs and the priorities when it comes to equitable climate action. So we're envisioning to have this at the Monroe County Public Library, which does have, so I've heard, some larger spaces that could accommodate, maybe 100 or 100 plus folks. And so, well, that's essentially the addendum. We had pretty strong consensus, several of us who met last week, that, we want to go ahead and approve the total $1,500 amount. And I'm just really excited that we made progress on this. And it looks like the event, we just got word that the consultant is available on Wednesdays, from 1 to 4 Pacific. So it'll probably be on a Wednesday in March at this stage, just as an update for the whole commission. And we're open to questions on the addendum, et cetera. Oh, and if, I don't know, Nejla, Alicia, Jarrett, Lauren, if you had anything to add, please feel free to chime in as well.
I'll just provide a little bit of context as well. So the 1,500 will be out of, I think you mentioned, but the ESD department budget. I've been working with Maribel to make sure the logistics of that are fine. Just wanted to talk to the rest of the commission and get their feedback about the structure. And then we can move forward in terms of both advertising the event and having the next working group meeting in January. So if anyone has any concerns or comments about this would be a good time to make a comment, and then we were going to bring this to a vote after discussion. I also can't see anyone now, so I don't know how you're responding. Let's see.
I'll just say, like, as somebody who participated in the meeting last week, I'm happy with how this turned out. Like Colin said, I think that there was pretty broad consensus amongst that group that this was kind of the best way to make the most of the money that we were getting from ESD to put on this event, and also ensure that the consultants are being compensated also for the prep work that they're doing for the event. So, we bounced around a few different ideas, but ultimately decided that, the hour and a half with the presentation and then the listening session followed by a 30-minute debrief with the consultants to get their advice on like steps forward would be kind of the best of both worlds, and getting the full range of their expertise, which we felt that we are, paying for. So yeah, I just wanted to say I'm fully supportive of this, and I look forward to this hopefully great event. Hopefully there's some way to attend hybridly, so I can come in from Sweden. So yeah, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks. I just have a couple of quick comments. The first is what I think might be a typo in point number 1, the second line. It says next step session. Is that accurate? Is it supposed to be sessions? Next step sessions, like a session of next step sessions? And I guess maybe the second.
It shouldn't be plural. That's
okay.
I can delete that.
And then the second point was just I didn't see the 60-minute prep time included in the addendum, or I think in the original resolution, in terms of the allocation of the 3 total hours. It describes the 90-minute town hall and the 30-minute debrief.
It's in the third. I don't know if you can see my highlight there. So event of 90 minutes, an event debrief, and next steps meeting, which would be 30 minutes. It could either happen immediately afterwards or at a separate point in time, depending on their availability, and then the 1 hour, no more than 1 hour billable. So we recognize that there could be more event preparation that they need to do, but capped it at that with the understanding that that should be hopefully sufficient.
Excellent, thank you.
So if there are no further, Matt, were you raising your hand?
I was, yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool.
I just wanted to echo Jarrett's comments that, well, actually not, I guess, add on to the idea of it being attendable remote if possible, or I was wondering if it could be recorded. Wednesday nights are generally council meetings, so I wouldn't be able to attend, nor would other council members, and I'm sure there's some others who would be interested. So just gonna put a plug in, I guess, to suggest that if possible, if the folks presenters are open to it.
Yeah, I think the intention is to try to, I mean, we don't know what COVID's going to look like in March, but we'd like to move forward with having the event. So I'm going to continue to see what the situation is, but find a large space, make sure that there's some opportunity for virtual participation, and then allow, if possible, an in-person option. But the consultants themselves will be Zooming in, so we'll need to facilitate that in some fashion. To your point about Wednesday nights, do you have a council meeting every Wednesday night, or are there certain ones in March?
Generally speaking, it's first and third Wednesdays are regular sessions. That's almost all but a guarantee.
Yeah.
The other Wednesdays are committee nights, but overwhelmingly we have meetings on those nights. Fifth Wednesdays are a wild card, and sometimes it's a special session. But okay. Yeah, more or less can't bank on it. But yeah, I just mean a recording of some kind. If they're not opposed to that, would be lovely to be able to check out later.
Okay, and maybe another option would be, if that's the only time available for them for scheduling, we could have some questions that you might want to ask during the session that we could facilitate as well.
Alrighty, if no one else has anything they would like to say, then I would entertain a motion to move into a vote on this amendment to Resolution 21 2102. Hang on. No. Yeah, 2102. I got it right from memory. Okay. I would entertain that motion.
Motion to call the question on addendum to resolution 2102.
Second,
Sorry.
Yeah.
quick Robert's orders clarification. A motion to call the question is only a motion that we should now vote on it, as opposed to a motion on the addendum itself. So if I'm clarifying correctly from Colin's motion, I think the intent was to call a motion on the resolution, or the addendum to the resolution, the amendment. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, we used to do this accidentally on the city council as well. But yeah, a motion on calling the question is just whether or not we should now take a vote. So I think.
Oh, that's right. Okay, thanks, Matt.
It's okay. Oh, Robert.
I suppose motion to vote on addendum to resolution 2102.
Yeah. Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Alrighty, so we'll do a roll call vote for this. So like earlier, when I say your name, please unmute and indicate how you're voting on this amendment. So first up is Jarrett. Jarrett votes yes. Second is Matt.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know if that came through.
And then Alicia,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Jonna,
Yes.
Colin,
Aye.
Shelby,
Yes.
Najla,
yes.
and Joseph.
Yes.
Alrighty, so that amendment passes unanimously. And we will, I believe Lauren has been in contact with the consultants, so we'll let them know that that has been approved by the commission. The next item of new business is the annual BCOS sustainability assessment, which is included in our bylaws, and Joseph brought that to our attention. So Joseph or Lauren, whoever wants to have the floor first on that, take it away.
Yeah, I can. Oh, go ahead, Lauren.
Sorry, I was just going to provide some context if folks have not been on the commission since there was an assessment. While it's called for in the bylaws, it has not always happened annually and has varied in terms of what it has covered. So in some iterations of this assessment, it focused more on certain environmental indicators and then was presented to council. I think especially with COVID and other more pressing things on the council agenda, there hasn't been one scheduled, but I think that getting something on the calendar either to committee, probably to committee by presentation by the council would make sense, and then I could work with the commission on the contents. Generally, I mean, I think it's helpful for council to have a report on what the commission's working on so that they stay up to date on what's planned and what's occurred in the past year. So that's pretty much it. I have copies of previous years that I can also share with folks in advance of next month's meeting if they just wanted to get a sense of what that looks like in the past as reference.
Joseph.
Yeah, thank you for that update, Lauren. Really, the nature of bringing this to the agenda was just that I had read through the bylaws recently, realizing that we were at the end of the calendar year and that the annual meeting is actually mid-year and that it didn't happen. So I just wanted to follow up to see what the state was and if that was something that we needed to follow up on for this calendar year. But I would be interested in your offer for references for previous years. And then also, if I can summarize to verify that I understand correctly, if there is no current report required for this year without it being problematic for adherence to the bylaws.
I think ideally, but I mean, there's a lot of things in kind of COVID times right now that would typically be normal and haven't been scheduled. So I would be less concerned about I mean, there's only 2 weeks left in the year, so I think if we can focus as a commission on making sure that's scheduled for next year and anticipating that. Your mention of the annual meeting, that's typically been held in July, according to the bylaws. In the past, you know, people have been on summer vacation, so that's one of the motivating factors, I think, to moving it to earlier in the year, because then you kind of start off the year with more continuous membership and reporting.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I want to say from my memory, I don't think it's happened in the 2.5 years I've been on the commission. So I think that unless they like come retroactively too, like we're okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on the BCOS annual sustainability assessment? Alrighty, seeing no hands, we will. Was there a hand? Oh, Colin.
Oh, I didn't hear. Did you say my name?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, thanks, Jared. Yeah, I guess I'm curious, like the idea behind this rare presentation was to sort of, you know, help to initiate, you know, implementation of the racial equity component of the climate action plan. I'm curious, like what do commissioners think, like if we're not going to be issuing sustainability assessments, what is the way that we should be kind of helping the city, like overseeing that implementation, if that makes sense? Like how can we do that in sort of a systematic fashion, or is that even something that commissioners are interested in doing, if that makes sense? So like the mechanism for overseeing the climate action plan going forward.
Joseph?
Yeah, I do think that is an important question that you bring it up, Colin, but I also think it will probably require a lot of discussion. And I know we've already just in this meeting brought up some of the more bylaw annual meeting points to discuss and quorum topics that would be nice to address if we can. And there's still one more new business item. So I would perhaps suggest taking that up at the next meeting.
That sounds good.
I'll plan on following up as to what that looked like. I think in the past, commissioners have had trouble collecting metrics that are difficult to collect unless you're sort of an organization. So some of the things that were difficult for people to help try to gather for the sustainability assessment included things like utility data or other sort of environmental indicators. And so I think it's a good question as to the best. I think things like the town hall will be really helpful in informing that. And so maybe it ends up being less of a quantitative indicator and more of qualitative feedback and town hall feedback from the community about their concerns and interests in relation to climate action plan implementation that end up being the most informative. So open to any ideas that you might have, and I think we can bring that up in addition to the quorum topic and the other topic in terms of officer elections for final determination of the January meeting.
Sounds good. And with that, if I see no other hands, oh, Matt.
Do you folks want, I guess the quorum issue that I brought up earlier that we shifted to this part of the agenda. I think it, like Lauren suggested, it can be discussed mostly in January, but I guess the decision to be made would be leave it as is, which is somewhat ambiguous, but out of an abundance of caution has been interpreted in the past, at least by city legal, as meaning members serving, meaning the number of total seats, 14. The alternative to that would be clarifying that number of members serving simply means seats filled, so that if we're at 9 or 11 or 12, quorum would represent the majority of who's actually serving on the commission. So I don't know if we need more discussion necessarily, but I think it'd be worth considering an amendment in that fashion if folks are interested in that in January.
Lauren?
I'll just make a quick comment there. I think my preference would be seat serving because sometimes the scheduling of the interviews or timing with getting seats filled doesn't always align with the meeting schedule. And so if it was changed to be total number of seats, if there was a period of time where we have more vacancies, that makes it challenging to conduct business month to month. Clearing up that ambiguity would be helpful since it wasn't immediately apparent to me when I first started being staff liaison. So I'd be happy clarifying that in the bylaws if people were amenable to that.
Yeah, I also share those thoughts. I think doing seats, like how many people are currently serving on the commission, makes a lot of sense. Also, just because like a lot of different bodies are appointing people to BCOS. And so, you know, sometimes people get behind. We're currently having I don't want to call it an issue, but just we don't have anybody representing the IU Office of Sustainability. And so to count that vacant seat then in quorum, I think just kind of sets us up for potential failure in the future. Joseph, Lauren, did you have something else? Or
Oh, no.
Okay, then Joseph.
Yeah, I think it's worth specifying in the bylaws just to remove ambiguity. And I also agree with what seems to be the consensus that the interpretation of members serving should really be actual members in seats and not just number of seats on the commission. And I was even my understanding in looking through bylaws for the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Waste Management District that when specifying number of seats total, that was referred to as membership in all of the bylaws references that I had read. But yeah, I think it's also very practical for it to be number of active members over seats for all of the aforementioned reasons. And in terms of next steps with that, I presume that would need to be adopted via resolution. And if that's the case, would the resolution be drafted now and could it be voted on at the January meeting for counting the 2 sessions before making the amendment?
Matt, do you want to answer that?
Sure. Or my perspective anyway. I think we'd just be voting to amend the bylaws. I don't think a resolution would be needed, but it would just be a vote on an amendment to the bylaws. The bylaws are normally, at least in a council context, we would when we also have a requirement to hear something at least twice. That needs to be in writing both times for the council, but our bylaws don't specify that. It just says discussed. So we are discussing a proposed amendment right now, substantively. So if whoever the legal support is for this commission doesn't think it's a problem when Lauren loops back, I think it could probably be voted. An amendment could probably be voted on in January. And I guess I'll just mention on that front too, Lauren, if I'm not sure who on city legal side would look at this, but I'm happy to involve council legal if that's helpful at all, since some of this language originates from city code as well.
Sure, I'll have Larry look at it and I'll let you know if I'm sure we can probably vote to amend it next meeting, but if there's any potential issue, can let you all know.
Sounds good. Joseph?
Yeah, in that case, for the sake of discussion on changes to the bylaws, my recommendation or proposal would be to move the annual meeting, like the entire contents or the month specified for the annual meeting to be in February. So that would include the voting and the review of bylaws as well. Sorry, by voting, I mean elections. That's a more appropriate term.
Yeah, I think that personally, like February or maybe March, because the one thing I would be like with putting it in February, then you have people who like that's their first meeting potentially that are filling the seat of somebody whose term ended in January. So maybe if it was in March, that would at least ensure that there had been one meeting under their belt. But I know that most people don't like, I don't know, it doesn't always end in January. So I think you're always going to run into some problems, but I think, yeah, February or March make the most sense. Did you have something, Joseph?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion. I think that's the course that I would like to go as well then.
Alrighty, seeing no other hands on this topic, we will move into the last item of new business, which is the 2022 ESD pilot program for commercial compost generators.
It's a really long name. We're gonna rebrand that. Yeah, I don't have a ton of specificity. I was just following up. I've mentioned this a couple of times. I'm working on finalizing contract language with Earthkeepers. The focus of the pilot would be working with restaurants. Gonna have to work on program eligibility criteria, and we'll plan on having more details for the Climate Action Committee meeting in January. So I can provide more of an update at that point too, but basically it's coming. There's a couple of new programs that are going to be American Rescue Plan funding. We'll continue the existing Bloomington Green Home Improvement Program and solar and solar and energy efficiency loan program, and then be starting three new ones and have a staff member. So I think there'll be plenty of updates for next time, but it's in the works and funded. Just have to kind of work out details and logistics before I say anything on the record about, you know, how many restaurants we'll be serving or who's eligible. Any other questions? It will have a better name than 2022 ESD commercial generators. Joseph?
Yeah, I think the name is very descriptive. I just wanted to say thank you for that information. That's good to hear. There were a few, I don't know if concerns is the right way, but thoughts I had about just how to address the issue of increasing compost collection, knowing that it needs both an end market and hauling and processing steps as well. Hauling, I guess, is the same as waste hauling, but that I would hate for the differences in how compost operates to be overlooked in overexpanding or perhaps misexpanding the compost collection process.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the compost report that the Solid Waste District created with a contractor. I think the focus of the program is on restaurants because they're identified as one of the highest generating targets for composting. And I'm looking at, I mean, talk to Earthkeepers and talk to them about their experience working with restaurants currently to try to work to design the program. It will be a pilot program because we have funding for 1 year. So we'll kind of see how it goes and what financial resources are available for a year or two. But I think getting something started, especially for entities that don't receive city sanitation services and don't have an alternative compost provider, will be productive, and we'll kind of see how it works. So it's a little bit experimental, but looking at other programs across the country, specifically Shoreline, Washington has something similar that we're modeling against. So we did a review of compost programs across the country to kind of see what might be a good fit with limited financial resources at this point in time. Shelby?
This is just a small note, but my restaurant does currently compost. We use Green Camino. So if you at any point in time have any like specific questions that you seem to not be able to get an answer for, just let me know and I should be able to help as much as I can in that regard.
What restaurant do you work with?
Chick-fil-A.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Alrighty, if there are no further questions for Lauren, I'll ask if anybody else has any new business items that they wish to discuss before we move on to working group updates. Now would be the time to raise your hand. Colin?
I thought it could be interesting to invite the general manager of Bloomington Transit to come give a presentation on sort of opportunities and challenges for greening transit in Bloomington. I'd be curious to just hear what he and or his operations manager have to say on that. Yeah, I guess, I mean, we could even fit that into sort of our overseeing climate action plan implementation and sort of tie it to the transit component somehow if we want. But this is sort of just kind of a one-off idea that I thought of. So yeah, maybe other commissioners are interested. That'd be cool.
Was there a certain month, Colin, that you were thinking for next month, or?
We could set it for January. Yeah, I think,
Okay.
that might be, yeah, I don't see why not.
I think it would be helpful to hear from the director of transit to speak to our commission. And I really liked whoever's suggestion it was earlier that we could maybe prepare some questions in advance this time. And I also want to add, not to just detract from your topic, but just for scheduling purposes, I like the idea of that Matt suggested of inviting Mary Morgan, I think, who's the head of this heading home plan. I think it'd be really great to invite her to speak as well, specifically to the Housing First resolution and what parts of it, may be being addressed in their work, if possible. So I don't know if that would, okay, great. The Housing Security Coalition. So yeah, I also, after just perusing the report, I also would have more questions for her in detail. So I don't know if we could have them both the same month, or if we want to schedule one person per month, or what other people think about that. Maybe if we limit each person to like 15 or 20 minutes, we could do both.
I can see if John Connell can come in, that's Bloomington Transit, in February maybe. And then we'll have the annual meeting in March, and can see if Mary's available for January, if that works for folks.
What do you think, Colin?
Sorry, could you repeat the proposal?
I was just proposing, and this could open a conversation, but seeing if Mary Morgan would like to come in January, kind of as a follow-up to John Soddy's presentation, and circulate questions in advance for her, and then see if John Connell or Zach Unick from Bloomington Transit could come in February. Then March we'll have the officer election, so probably that meeting will be pretty full.
That sounds good to me.
I think that sounds great too. Does anyone else think it would be useful to hear from Mary Morgan or John Connell?
Yeah, I think both of them would be really useful to hear from personally. And I saw a lot of people giving thumbs up too, just in case people missed it. Colin?
I meant to include a rationale with this. So second only to electricity generation, transportation is Bloomington's largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, and that's per the climate action plan. So transportation is twice as much as the next highest category. And that's why I'm particularly interested in decarbonization of transit personally.
And I would just add that we've discussed on this commission before, like free transit, how much that would add to the sustainability of our city and encourage people to ride. And so I would also, I also think that's an urgent need in our city. So I agree.
Alrighty, does anybody else have any comment they would like to make or topic they would like to bring up before we move out of new business? Alrighty, seeing none, we will move into working group updates. We'll start off with the Just Transition Working Group. So if somebody wants to somebody from the working group wants to comment on what y'all have been up to, that would be great.
I can go. So I think the next thing we're thinking about is the outreach for the town hall event coming up. So we're starting to think about what kind of groups that we would want to come to that, and our next kind of action items are coming up with like a little kind of called it a pitch, just like an intro to what's happening at the event, and maybe also a broader survey that we could send to everyone that would potentially come to this event, to start focusing in on like pain points and frustrations and like key problems that they're seeing within their communities. So, and specifically related to, equity. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're going next. Anybody else can chime in?
Hi, Alicia. Thanks for that summary. I just wanted to add that I found a useful term on this subject for anyone doing research is community needs assessment. And that's the process that we're following.
Alrighty, does anybody have any questions or comments on the Just Transition Working Group? Okay, seeing no hands, we will move into the Policy Working Group. Do we have any updates from that working group?
The biggest update is that I talked with the people in the Just Transition Working Group, and they agreed that it made sense to move my work on the Housing First resolution from the policy group at this point into the Just Transition Working Group, just so there's more people working on it. And so we're including it, and because it made sense to include it under that working group. So yeah, so that I'm not duplicating efforts on two working groups. So that was the only update. I've already shared all the updates on that with the commission.
Alrighty. And then we have the Waste Reduction Working Group update.
Yeah, I will note that we have still yet to convene, so there hasn't been any activity in the group. I have been recently reviewing the compost related goals in the climate action plan, and think this might be an opportunity to propose either to the working group or to the commission as a whole that could be a potential good activity for this working group in reviewing because the commission has expressed an interest and importance in composting, and then to just review the stated goals, and then sort of along the lines that Colin had mentioned earlier, to collaborate to find ways to provide feedback for helping to implement and guide their implementation. Are there any commissioner comments or thoughts on that topic?
Alrighty, does anybody have any questions or comments for any of the working groups before we move out of that section of the agenda? Alrighty, seeing none, that brings us to the end of our agenda for this meeting. Like Lauren said, next meeting, I'm hoping to come, but depending on when my flight is, I might actually be in the air when it happens. But hopefully I'm landed and will be able to join for the last meeting. But if not, I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure serving with all of you, and I wish you all the best of luck if I don't make it. Or if I don't make it to the meeting, not if I don't make it, like the flight crashes or something. But I also just wanted to remind you all that the next meeting is on January 11th. And from 6 to 7:30 like usual, just so you can add it to your calendar. And like always, I'm sure Lauren will be updating us when Governor Holcomb makes a decision about the emergency order and whether it will be continued for another month or not. Does anybody have anything else they want to mention or add before we adjourn for the day? Joseph.
Yeah, I just want to vocalize what I'm pretty sure everyone else is expressing, and that's gratitude for your work as chair. I really appreciated it. I am excited for you to leave. It is bittersweet for us as well. And yeah, wish you all the best as well. So thank you again very much for everything.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, everybody. If I take any cool pictures or anything, I'll make sure to send them over through email. Yeah.
Are you graduating after this semester, or do you come
No, I
back?
have another year at IU.
Oh,
So potentially when I get back, you might see my face again here.
Okay.
We'll just see what happens. Depends whether you fill those vacancies first, I guess. But yeah, no one else has anything. We can adjourn this meeting, and I hope everybody has a good rest of your semester if you're a student or professor at IU, or just a good rest of your year, and happy holidays and everything.